Hey, friends, welcome back to the Marriage Adventure Podcast. We're your hosts, Danielle and Bonnie Hoover, and today we're talking about something that kind of quietly shapes every marriage, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that once you see it, you really can't unsee it because it affects how you see each other, how you hear each other, how you fight, how you connect, how you reconnect, and even what you assume about each other's hearts.
Yeah. So we're talking about whether your marriage is operating from a positive default or a negative default. And that's probably nothing you've thought about before, but it's really interesting. So I think you're going to be interested once we get into it.
And yeah, before anybody starts feeling defensive, let's just say, personally, we've lived on both sides of this.
Sometimes daily.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the question we really want you to sit with today as you listen is this. If nothing changed, would your marriage feel better or worse a year from now? It's a big question.
Okay, let's try not to make it a scary question. Hopefully it's a hopeful one, because today we're going to talk about how this default forms, why it matters so much, and then how you can actually change it.
Yeah, so what do we mean by a positive or negative default? This is also kind of thought you can use the words sentiment override, right? So do you have a positive sentiment that overrides your thoughts about your spouse, or do you have a negative sentiment that overrides your thoughts, or what do you default towards, right? So
it's kind of like that default. It's a lens that you look through when you see something. Like if you're wearing rose-colored glasses, you think about early on when you get married, you kind of wear this rose-colored tinted glasses. Everything's perfect, everything's happy. So you tend to see that person way more positively than everybody else does at times.
Right now I have on glasses, and I have some scratches, and you have a scratch right on your face.
Oh, sorry.
Because I'm looking through.
Right.
I'm looking through a lens, and it tints the way you see things.
Yeah.
Right. Whether you have on sunglasses or whatever, it tints the actual. So it's not. So what you're looking at isn't that way, but the way you're looking at it is that way.
Right.
And so sometimes in our marriage relationship, we can have a positive default, or we can have that negative default. And so this isn't really about intent. It's really about the interpretation of it.
It's like how I'm seeing how you're relating to me.
Yeah. And so let's give an example to that. So in a positive default relationship, then, whether we go through bad times or good times or whatever, things are generally going to default back to a positive relationship. So we might have a bad day, a disagreement on something or an argument, but we're going to move through it. We're going to get back to a positive viewpoint of our spouse.
Yes.
But if you live in a negative default or a negative sentiment override, then everything is seen through that lens of negativity.
Yeah.
And so I think teenage brother and sister might sometimes be a good illustration of that. That happens when you have when you're teenagers and you have brother and sister, you kind of live in this negative space.
Everything gets on your nerves that they do, even when they're not intentionally getting on your nerves. Now there's times they're doing it intentionally, but then it's everything is just annoying because that person has this negative, annoying sentiment override you have towards them.
Right. And other people can do the exact same thing.
Yep.
And it doesn't get on your nerves because you're at a positive override with those people. But when you're in a negative override with this person or with your spouse, they can do the exact same thing someone else does, but you see it as a negative.
Yeah.
Right. And so most couples either drift into this unintentionally over time, or it's caused by a hurtful action that wasn't dealt with. So, Bonnie, let's talk about the drift thing. How does that happen?
I think it's one day at a time. It's just that little, it's actually taking one tiny step away from each other and not realizing you're doing it. Maybe you get focused on other things, your divide and conquer world, or you said something to me that that was a little bit hurtful, and I'm like, okay, and I move on from it, but I didn't deal with it. And then maybe a couple of days pass and you say something else negative, or you do something that annoys me. I start little by little clouding the view I have of you in a negative way. And it's just one small thing at a time.
And this could kind of go back to the brother-sister thing. There's a saying, familiarity can breed contempt, right? So when we're overly familiar with someone or they're always there, we just kind of take them for granted, you know?
Yep.
It's kind of like we push away the people that love us the most, you know, unintentionally or sometimes intentionally. And drift can do that. We can just be so familiar to somebody and with somebody that it breeds this contemptuousness, contemptuality.
I don't know. I don't even know at this point.
I don't know.
You know when you say a word over and over, it starts sounding weird?
Oh, yeah. No, I have no idea what you're
Okay.
Consumption.
It's like, is that even a word anymore?
But anyway, so we condition our relationship to be negative. And so Colby is funny because we have this little dog, Charlie, which we're going to use in a couple stories today. But Charlie, when we got him, was a little puppy, and Colby was
a little puppy.
What was he? He was a little puppy. He was like 8, right?
Yeah.
And so he was our COVID dog. And so, 6 years ago. And so when we got Charlie, Colby was playing with him a certain way, and he was kind of being rough and kind of,
making the dog growl. And
the dog would growl. Colby thought that was cute and fun, and so he tried to make him growl. And I went, buddy, dude, I know you think that growling is fun and cute, and you like his response, but you're building a relationship with him.
Yep.
And if you ask Colby today, he wishes he could go back. And he said that. He said, I wish I could go back in time and do that differently.
Yeah.
Because Charlie doesn't trust Colby. Even though now Colby's more trustworthy with him.
Yeah.
He's conditioned.
He just kind of has this negative viewpoint of Colby.
He does. He has a negative default.
And so he's constantly like on edge around Colby, even when Colby's being super sweet and it hurts Colby's feelings. But we're like, bud, you've kind of conditioned him to this relationship.
Yep. And Charlie has another relationship he's conditioned.
Yes, it's the smoke alarm. So
smoke detector in our house.
So we installed this really incredibly sensitive smoke detector. We didn't realize it was way overly sensitive, and it's like
if you're listening and you have a fire at your house, this smoke detector at our house will probably pick it up.
It's so sensitive, and
counties away.
We wouldn't even really be burning anything if I was cooking, and it would detect just any little thing.
If the stove, if you turned it on, it would go off.
And so the dog would freak out, go hide under the bed because he doesn't like how loud the alarm is. Well, now every single time we're in there cooking.
So we got rid of that smoke alarm.
Yes, we got
some normal ones in there.
Yes, and every time the smoke alarm goes off, even though it's not a dangerous situation or anything like that, it trained him to be afraid of it over time. And so every time it goes off, every time it doesn't. Yeah,
every time you step to the oven.
Yeah, you're right.
Or the stove, or any of us, he runs back to our bedroom and crawls underneath our bed
to hide from it.
It's the cutest, saddest thing
It
I've ever
is,
seen.
and even when it doesn't go off, it normally doesn't go off anymore, but he hides from it because he was trained to have that much sensitivity to it.
Yeah. So connecting that to marriage, when we have repeated emotional false alarms within our marriage, that creates this default, or this sentiment override that we have. And even when we correct that, that can take a while to get over, right? And you have to be intentional about getting over it, because it can be this triggering event that makes you think, oh, that's going to happen again, even though
it's not.
There's no danger there.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's a very real thing.
If you and your spouse are longing to grow deeper in your relationship with the Lord and each other, try one of our at-home signature courses. These step-by-step courses will help you to reset, realign, and rekindle your marriage with Christ at the center. You'll get clear teaching, practical exercises, downloadable couples guides, and tools you can use this week, plus options to learn at your pace or together over a weekend. You can enroll in a course that fits you. Simply go to themarriageadventure.com/courses. So today we're talking about whether our marriage is in this default positive or negative setting that we've got set on the relationship, and it affects how we view our spouse, positively or negatively.
Yeah. So if you've kind of identified with one of these, right, you might be listening and be like, "Ooh, that's me. I have this negative default or this negative sentiment override towards my spouse. Like everything they do gets on my nerves, or everything spurs this argument."
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a little bit. So when you're in a negative default, does it have to be negative? A negative situation or negative action or negative comment from your spouse to trigger it, or what is it?
No, a lot of times it's even neutral stuff. It's like you're not really even you're just sitting there. It's like your breathing is getting on my nerves.
That sounds like our teenagers with each other.
I know. But even when someone's trying to make an attempt to be kind, sometimes it can be thrown off as an irritation because you're in this negative default mode towards them, and conflict. Oh boy, howdy! If you're negative, well, you just were expecting that to happen anyway.
Oh, well, yeah, it just confirms the way you felt.
Exactly.
Yep. So even neutral things can be that. What about positive things, like when relational repair attempts are made, or even repair attempts around the house, right? I tried to fix the washer, and it, well, I knew you'd screw that up, right, or whatever. But relational repair attempts, those are missed too, aren't they?
Yeah, you don't see it because you don't want to see it. You've kind of retrained, and you're like, all right, well, I just am expecting this relationship to be negative. I'm expecting them to fail. I'm expecting them to, even if we try this, it's not going to work. So I think you're in a dangerous place relationally when you get to the point that you're not even wanting to look for the good anymore.
When we, Scripture tells us we're either walking according to the flesh or we're walking according to the Spirit. And meaning, when I walk according to the Spirit, it means I'm in the face of Jesus. I'm walking with Jesus daily. I'm in His Word. I'm in conversation. I'm in godly community. And in that, Jesus tells us He'll begin to produce the fruit of the Spirit within us. And it's love and joy and peace and patience, kindness, right? But it also tells us when we're walking according to the flesh, that means I'm walking according to the old nature. And it said that the works of the flesh are evident, and it lists all these negative things that you're like, yep, that's all bad. And then it says, and things like this. So anyway, any other type thing. Well, the thing to realize about our flesh, and we've said this before on the podcast, our flesh loves to be injured. Our flesh wants to be victimized. And our flesh will always be the victim. And so you may be like, no, I don't like to be injured. No, you might not, but your flesh does.
That's right.
And so we don't want to see the good things when we're in a negative, when we're walking in the flesh and we're allowing ourselves to live. Now, we're not talking about an argument-free marriage. Right. We're not talking about one where you're not going to disagree, where you're never going to disagree with your spouse or even be mad at them. That's called being human, right? Jesus was mad at people. He was even mad at his disciples sometimes, right? They got in arguments. But when we live according to the flesh and we live there, sometimes we don't want to see the good things because our flesh feels validated.
Yep.
Well,
so, if your relationship, if you're hearing this and you're like, you know what, we've slipped into that, or I've slipped into that towards my spouse, you're sitting here probably thinking, well, I don't know how you dig yourself out of that. We do want to tell you there's hope for that. I mean, because you actually can, if you're intentional, you can change that default negative setting back to a positive one.
You can. Because when you sit in that negative setting, you feel unsafe, you shut down, and connection and communication stops with your spouse. So you want to be able to change it back.
Yeah.
And reset that, And
you don't want to go too long living in the negative, or then it's harder. You can come back from that, but you've got to work harder to get back to a positive.
Yep.
And if you're feeling that way, you're not broken, because, like we've said, we've been on both sides of that. And this is really not about blaming. It's not about blaming even yourself in this. You got to take responsibility, going, okay, yeah, I'm kind of in this negative default, but we're trying to find a way here to recalibrate.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And in that friendship with each other that you've had, I mean, you got married for a reason,
Yeah.
right? So it's in there. And emotional safety with each other are going to be key to recalibrating it. And so you're going to have to be patient.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't happen overnight. And you're going to have to be consistent in it. So let's talk about a few ways or a few practical things that you can do to recalibrate this and get back to a positive sentiment override. So one of them I've already talked about. It's getting in the face of Jesus.
Yeah.
Because
that's the most important one.
Yeah. No matter how hard I try to self-effort this and hear, you're listening today and you hear some good counsel and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'll put those things in practice, right? That's only going to last so long until the proverbial poop hits the fan again. And then you're like, oh, that didn't work. And you get back, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to have the inward power of the Holy Spirit to empower you to actually do the things we're about to tell you to do.
And I think a lot of that starts with being in His Word, but also praying and asking God to change your heart, because everything works from the inside out.
Yep.
And you need to just seek the face of God, because He can and He will change your heart if you ask Him to. So that's the first one. But the next thing is, let's practice. The practice number one here is increasing fondness and admiration for your spouse.
So what is, let's just kind of define that, fondness and admiration. Think about that, right? If you're fond of somebody, that means you have a high regard for them, right? You think well of them.
Yeah, you like that person.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, and we got married because we're fond of each other.
Yeah.
We really like each other.
I didn't marry the people I wasn't very fond of.
Right. And admiration, it's that having that, I look up to you, I respect you, I
admire
see,
you.
Yeah, I see the good things in you. And I think somewhere along the way in marriage, we stop looking for the good, because, like we've said, the little bad things creep in, or we're all selfish, broken people, and we want to be, we want to cling on to those hard things, but we let those things slip because over time we become injured and our flesh stays that way.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to understand, when you met your spouse and you dated your spouse and you got engaged and then you got married to your spouse, they weren't perfect.
No. But you had some chemicals going on keeping you from seeing it.
That's true. You had a way, though. You managed to become fond of them and admire them.
That's right.
Even in their imperfections. Now, obviously, dopamine and serotonin helped.
That's right.
But here's the wonderful thing about marriage is, while you won't live in that state of
Dopamine
and
Rush.
serotonin, there's a word I'm looking for that's escaped me. Limerence. You can come in and out of that, though, in marriage, right? You can visit those times. I mean, you think about when you get away for your honeymoon, or you go off on vacation, or you have a good date night, or wild passionate sex or something, right? You have those moments where it feels very much alive again.
That's right.
And you come in and out of it. So you can increase that and get back to those times of fondness and admiration.
And part of that is just being willing to notice the good things about your spouse. I mean, but just opening your eyes and intentionally look for those good things, because that retrains your lens. And then you kind of remember, oh yeah, that's why I love that person. That's a great thing about that person. And it kind of rekindles the fondness and the admiration there when you're willing to open your eyes and see the good again.
Yeah, I like that word, rekindles. It gives you that picture of like a campfire. I mean, have you ever think about when a campfire is kind of about to go out, but there's some embers there, and so you get down and you blow it and you get
air going
to paper
it.
plate, and you fan it, and guess what? It begins to, you get a stick and you move around the logs, and it begins to build back, right?
Rekindle.
It can be rekindled, and it's important to know that what you want to see, you'll see. So if you want to see negative about somebody, all you got to do is look, man. We all got it. We all have it right there. But if you want to see the positive about your spouse, chances are that's there too. So you've got to retrain your lens and retrain your brain. So how do you do this? So it's going to have to be a forced intentional exercise. You're not going to just accidentally, slide into that or be able to do this. So how do you build a habit? Any other way, right? You intentionally build a habit. If you want to lose weight, you build new habits. It's the new year, so probably most everybody's wanting to do that or get back into shape or do something, get better with your finances. You have to put some mechanism in place that kind of forces you back into a good habit. And so here's a great habit. Notice one thing a day that your spouse does that's positive, and comment on it. And so that's your goal today. And some people, they may be like, oh, well, that's disingenuous. No, it's totally ingenuous. It's totally genuous.
Yeah. Well, it's biblical if you think about it, because it's the same concept that we're told to renew our minds.
Yep.
When we're broken, sinful people, we have a lens that we see everything through, which is sin, until we come to know Christ. But our brain is still the same brain we had before we met Jesus.
That's right.
And we're told over time, you've got to overwrite the old with the new. And it's the same thing. I have to be intentional sometimes, and you have to be intentional sometimes. In our marriage, we've got to be intentional about overriding the lies that the enemy has planted in our brain over time about the negativity that's happened. We've got to overwrite that with the truth of who we fell in love with, who this person really is. And the longer I speak truth over my life, the more I'm going to believe it and then act on that.
Yep. And then on the other side of that, when you begin noticing those habits from those positive things, and you're commenting on them to your spouse, there's no saying what's rewarded is repeated.
Yeah.
And so when you start saying positive things to me, like, hey, I like that, or you look like you look good, like you lost a couple pounds or whatever, guess what? Oh man, I'm gonna keep trying to lose weight, or I'm gonna keep trying to do this thing, right? That was I remember one time I was making, for like a few days, I made the coffee at night and set it to go off in the morning so that when we got up, the coffee was made. And I didn't think about it, right? And so I just did it because I thought it'd be easier for me. And then you commented that, man, that was like so awesome, and that spoke love to you and all that. And so now I don't do it because it's easier for me. I do it, there's a couple days I missed, but I do it intentionally because I know it speaks love to you.
Yeah.
And so we can retrain that. So, number one, notice one thing a day about your spouse and that's positive, and commented on it. Emphasize small, sincere appreciation. That'll make big changes. It sounds so simple, too simplistic, but it's very real.
Yep. Second thing is another thing is to turn toward bids for connection. Now, what do we mean by bids toward connection? It's that okay, it's something simple that I'm doing to try to get your attention or to try to turn towards you. It's you making the coffee for me. That's a bid for connection.
So a bid is like on eBay, it's an offering. I'm gonna make an offering here, and you can accept it or not, right? So bid connection is kind of the same.
Yep. And it might be something simple, that things that you might not even have noticed. You might, because you're in a negative default, when your spouse says, hey, it's been a while since we've had a date night, you might see them accusing you, hey, we don't do date nights anymore. But
or you might be like, oh, you want sex.
Yeah.
Right. And it just turns negative.
But that could be a bid for connection, saying, hey, I miss you. I wish we could have a date night. So, turn towards those bids of connection rather than shooting them down, or just something simple as, hey, you look really nice today.
Yeah.
That might be your spouse's bid for connection. Turn towards that. I know, like this morning, I was busy, I wasn't paying attention, and you said, hey, and I turned around, and I was like, what? And I walked in, and you gave me a big hug. That was a bid for connection. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. It's those little things, and that might just slip your mind during the day that you don't see it as anything special. But even something simple as the end of your day when your spouse says, hey, how was your day? That's an invitation to talk. That's an invitation to give you an insight into, it's an invitation into an insight of what was your day like. I'd really like to know. So it's an invitation to connect.
And so if you're the one offering bids and your spouse is in a negative default or negative sentiment override, they're probably going to miss them,
Yeah.
especially at first. But keep on doing them, because
Yeah.
when you're in it, remember, whenever you're in a negative override, you don't see those things. They come across as negative, or they just go over your head. It's interesting. Dr. John Gottman conducted a study with newlyweds, and then he followed up with them 6 years later. So this was a 6-year study. Many of the couples that remained together, and then many of them had divorced. So maybe 50% or so. The couples that stay married were much better at one thing: turning towards instead of turning away. It didn't mean that it didn't say that they had less arguments, that they never fought. Or that they even had great communication habits, right? Or conflict resolutions, skills. They turned towards each other instead of turning away. And at the 6-year follow-up, couples who stayed married turned towards each other 86% of the time. Couples that divorced averaged only 33% of the time turning towards each other.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? So it's a pretty incredible piece of data statement. And it suggests that there's something you can do today that will dramatically change the course of your relationship. And I think even more importantly, it suggests that there's something that you cannot do that will lead to the downfall or the demise of your relationship if you turn away from your spouse and you don't pay attention to those bids. So how do you turn towards instead of away? So in order to understand turning, you have to first understand bids and what those bids are. And they're just simple. It's what healthy couples do, right? It's like when I think of my parents, and you said this the other day. So last week, my parents celebrated 65 years of marriage, and Dad's 90, and we won't have him too much longer, and Mom takes care of him. But they are so sweet, even at 90. And my dad he's out of it half the time. But she's still like, if I'm there and I say, Mom, what you want for dinner? Well, Dad, she says, Hayward, what do you want? Well, he doesn't really eat anymore. And he's not really, he does respond sometimes, but he's like, I don't care. But she always defaults to him. And what do you want? Or she's always thinking, or she sees something, if I show her a picture on the phone, she's like, hey, let's show that to your dad. Well, he's been blind for 8 years, and he really can't see much of anything. But she still thinks, she wants him to see it.
That's
she
right.
explains she still thinks towards him. And they still sit, and she holds his hand, and they've always sat on the couch and held hands, and they call each other, darling and honey. And,
honey.
Yep. And it's just that turning towards. And that's what healthy couples do. Is they turn towards each other and they offer those bids of connection, and they're simple. And but when you're in a negative space, you can overlook them.
Well, I think you started out by saying the number one, the major thing that will fuel this is allowing the Holy Spirit to do this through you.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't come natural to us to be selfless and to want to turn towards, especially if we're already in a negative. We kind of want to stay in that.
Yeah.
So we've got to allow the Holy Spirit to do that, but we've got to see that one of the major fuels for this is grace. Learning to have grace on each other and defaulting to grace. Yeah.
Grace is it's this magical, it's kind of like oil in the engine. It just allows it to run and not get hung up on all the selfish, silly things, right? And now we're not talking about toxic, abusive behavior here.
That's very different.
That's very different. But grace says, I love you more than that little action.
Yeah.
And we want grace from our Father, but yet we're sometimes reluctant to give it to our spouse.
Yeah.
And so you can't consistently extend grace to your spouse if you're disconnected from God's grace, right?
And the key to that is preaching the gospel to yourself every day.
Yeah.
It's reminding yourself what He did for you. what he's done for me, and how dare I not give you grace when he did that for me. And it's staying in the Word and in his presence and letting him fill me daily when I'm not feeling that feeling in our marriage.
Yeah.
That he's the one who fills me, and he will give me the grace to turn positively towards you when we're in that place. And pray. And if you're in that space today, begin to meet with the Lord in your time with him. Ask him to change your heart towards your spouse, and ask him to change your spouse's heart toward you, and to give you the grace that you need to love each other.
Yep. So if you're listening today and you realize that you've slipped into a negative default with your spouse, we just want you to hear this clearly. You don't have to be stuck there.
No, and you're not failing. Most couples don't really choose negativity. It kind of slowly grows life happens. We get it. It gets heavy, and then connection kind of gets thin, and you probably didn't get here on purpose.
That's right. But the good news is that defaults can change, right? Lenses can be cleaned up, can be retrained, and safety can be rebuilt. But it's going to start with intentionality, one small step at a time.
Yep,
right?
And those steps are going to require something deeper than willpower. We keep coming back to this, but they're going to require the power that can only come through the Holy Spirit.
Yep. Be in the face of Jesus every day. And when you are, the Holy Spirit will work in you and empower you to extend grace and love to your spouse.
It's isn't trying harder. We're not talking about that.
Nope.
But from receiving grace deeply and then letting it overflow in your marriage, because marriage isn't about perfection. It's about learning to walk this adventure together.
That's right. So if this episode resonated with you, make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and go to our YouTube channel and like and subscribe. Share it with another couple, and make sure to subscribe when you're there. So we will see you next time.
We are all